Hi there, good afternoon. I am Onika Stellingburg, the Director of Economic Development here at Linden Fund USA, LFU Guyana Inc. And it is my pleasure and esteemed privilege to welcome you to our very first Economic Spotlight Forum. This forum today will focus on waterfront development and its link to opportunities on the Wisma Shore. We're truly happy that you have taken the time to join us because we know that today's discussion would be something that would leave you thinking, and it would give you a whole lot of information on things that will be happening on the Wisma Shore and things to expect. So we have four amazing panelists coming from vastly different institutions. First up, we will have Mr. Samuel Wright. He is the trustee with Linden Fund Trust. Next, we will have the Mayor of Linden, Her Worship, Mrs. Unika Arundel, the Public Relations Officer for the Regional Democratic Council of Region Number 10, Mr. Leon Roberts, and the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Small Business Bureau, Ms. Vanessa Thompson. And this conversation today will take us on a journey coming from the lens of a developmental practitioner, understanding just what the concept of riverfront development is, where it comes from, some of the work that has been done over the last decade, whether it's research, whether it's project development, whether it's just the setting up of a management committee for the process. And we're then going to move to look at the policy level of things that are happening on the Wisma Shore, getting an idea of projects that are coming on stream in 2021 and moving forward. We will throw in a little bit about private investors and some of the work that they're looking to do. And finally, the discussion today will wrap up on the financing side of things. So we will get a good look at where you can access financing from should you have a project idea that you want to execute. So whilst we're focusing on the Wisma Shore, the financing is available for any part of Region 10. So just so you're aware of that. Our moderator for the discussion will be our board member for economic development, Mr. Damani Corbin. So just sit back, relax. If you have questions, make a note of them and send us an email at onika.stellingburg@lindenfund.org, and we would be more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Mr. Sam Wright.
Sir.
Thank you so much for taking the time to, partner with us, and just for your vision and just all the work you've been doing over the years.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Indeed.
It's good to be working together on such a project. And I think we can have a lot of good work to get done at the end of the process.
Indeed. So for the folks who don't know, Mr. Sam Wright has been putting together and toiling with this concept, this riverfront development project for over 10 years now.
Yes.
So I think what I wanted you to do is kind of like lay the foundation as to where the concept came from, where we are today, and then a little bit of insight into your vision for the future of it.
Okay. It was an interesting evolution. I returned to Guyana some time ago, probably in the turn about 2000 or so. And I became aware or conscious that the main street, Republic Avenue or by the road, whatever it was, it was in a state of disrepair. The businesses weren't doing very well. There's all kinds of problems with drainage, garbage disposal.
Right.
So for what the potential of the main street, it wasn't showing up. But I remember living in California that there was a project in some of the smaller towns. It's called Main Street Development Projects, where they took Main Streets and they put funds into it and changed Main Street because that was in a lot of small towns. The Main Street is a business hub, central business hub.
Indeed.
So I looked at that and said, well, you know what? I'll try to engage, the town council, the RDC, the various folks, the Chamber of Commerce, and let's try to do something to change Main Street. As I started to do that, some folks would say to me, well, if you're going to do Main Street, what about Co-op Crescent? So we brought Co-op Crescent into it.
Okay.
And then we were looking at Edward Benjamin. At that time, there was no Edward Benjamin. There was an open field. I remember Kashif and Shanghai had an exhibition.
Okay.
And they were holding an exhibition, and I said, it'd be nice if we could have an exhibition center. So I approached LEAP, and they said, okay, they would fund it. They were funded by European Union. So that's another part of it. So when all these pieces start coming together, we realized that here, we're on the riverfront. And if you start developing Mackenzie side, then you must consider Wisma side.
Indeed.
So that's the evolution of it. We said, okay, we'll develop the riverfront on both sides. It's like 3.5 miles from the bridge to Catabooty Creek.
Okay.
And about half a mile inland.
Sure.
So that defines what the riverfront was.
Indeed. So just to pause for a second to lay the context for our viewers, we understand that there's many Guyanese within the diaspora who are coming back home,
yes,
who may want to get involved in projects.
Yes.
We understand that there are local Guyanese who are trying to develop projects. Yes. We also understand that there's going to be an influx of new companies, yes, that may want to come and partner for waterfront development, right? Just wanted to lay home, yes, as an environmentalist,
yes,
understanding some things that you would have seen, yes, in California, yes, and then you took that knowledge, tried to apply it based on different models,
yes,
and then put a strategy together for Linden.
Yes, exactly.
And over time, here we are.
Yes.
And for this discussion, we understand that the concept in itself is broader than just with the Wisma Shore, right? So we don't want folks to think that this is just the Wisma Shore. What we want to do in this conversation was just focus in. But we wanted folks to also understand that there has been a strategy and there are thoughts, and this is a collaborative effort. Okay. So we have the RDC, we have Linden Fund Trust, we have LFU USA, we have the MNTC. We're a collaborative community, so that when individuals are interested in it, the right folks are at the table, and we're lucky to have everyone here today to collaborate and continue to toil on what can be, right? I know you're about to get into the future and some vision, so I'll turn it back to you.
And the riverfront, there's riverfront development throughout the world. If you go and Google riverfronts, it's amazing the types of riverfront development, the kinds of riverfront development that's going on. And every riverfront is unique.
Indeed.
So you can't expect every riverfront to have the same approach. I mean, some of the historical controls, the geographical controls, there's business development. So it depends on the history and the specific environment of that particular riverfront. Mm-hmm. For example, in Bartica, you have one side of the Essequibo River. Now in Linden, we have both sides.
Right.
So therefore, what you do on one side of the river reflects or impacts what you can do on the other side. And some of the things we start understanding as we got an evolved sense of the riverfront. Initially, it was aesthetics. But then the riverfront, when you start looking at the riverfront as a whole, you realize that Linden started on the riverfront. So a lot of our historical monuments are already on the riverfront.
Right.
Most of our original churches are on the riverfront. Most businesses are on the riverfront right now. Indeed. So in a sense that when you talk about developing the riverfront, you have to take into consideration what's already there, what are current practices, what people's expectations, but also what are the potentials of the riverfront that we have not looked at. Because when we were developing Linden, and Linden was evolving, we didn't consider the riverfront as a concept.
Indeed.
And that's one of the things we're struggling with, is to introduce the concept of the riverfront as one whole thing. For example, Linden historically is a port. Even before bauxite, we had schooners coming upriver to collect wood and other materials. So Linden is a port. If you're going to develop Linden's riverfront, you have to consider its importance of a port for its development and sustainability.
Indeed.
Things like that.
Indeed. One of my questions were to ask you, how did the riverfront play an economic role within the community in the past? But you already went into, some of those areas in regards to it originally being a port.
Remember, before the roads, it was a river.
Right.
Everything. People, materials, everything was on the river. And there were different kinds of transportation. Of course, you have basic things like rafts, shifting river, wood down the river. There's schooners, there are ferries, even there were amphibious planes that landed on the riverfront. So the riverfront, when you consider that almost all our major industries are on the riverfront, is very critical.
Yeah.
And what happens to the riverfront, how the riverfront evolves, is directly related to how Linden will evolve.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, we actually think about the geography of Region 10 and the significance it is to the country.
Yes.
understanding from a riverfront perspective, there are individuals that can be coming from both sides.
Yes.
And the traffic can be quite high.
Exactly.
And people can also be coming from inland on boats as
Along the
well.
river, exactly.
On the river as well. So, you know, it's very interesting in terms of
It's a very
the
dynamic mix of things that are going on the riverfront. And as we consider developing the riverfront further, what will happen in the future? Already there's the talk of a new bridge, and that bridge is connecting us to Latin and South America. So therefore, once that bridge crosses the river, the design criteria for those bridges, how the bridge is going to affect the riverfront itself. So suddenly we see this future thing that's coming, and that's why when we talk about developing the riverfront, we said let's have a plan concerning what's here, what are historical uses. And another thing to very consider, the river has its own needs. In a sense, it's very hydraulically dynamic. The river is connected to the creeks, which also impact flooding on the river. So when we talk about riverfront development, the river has its needs. And if you don't consider the needs of the river, it will destroy you.
Indeed,
eventually.
indeed.
So
I mean, you mentioned a few things. I just wanted to ensure that folks are grasping this, right? So one can just go from aesthetic approach.
Yes.
One can look at it from an approach of, hey, I just want to ensure that I can buy and sell goods.
Yes.
From an environmental standpoint, we understand that there could be flooding if the river itself is not taken care of.
Okay.
Understanding the way that you know, the hydraulics and such with the river and things of that nature in terms of where it all, it's just so dynamic and complex that, again, when individuals, whether public or private or investors, are coming in, the need for partnering with the you know, folks locally to come in with your ideas to ensure that, you know, there's multiple areas, because the research has been done.
Yes.
And again, we're willing to partner and want to ensure that this initiatives get pushed forward in the right direction.
And one of the important or critical aspects of riverfront development for us, the river is a gem. Yeah, it's really a beautiful place. It's a great place for us. Historically, we used to consider it our pond, because we used to think, I'm going to cross the pond.
Yeah.
And while it's a river. But it's given a kind of romantic sense of how we saw the river. But also the river for tourism is very important, but there's also an interesting aspect. I remember being in Idaho, and some friends were showing me the salmon were going upriver to spawn. Thousands of salmon going upriver. And when you see that, it's a very interesting, but guess what? That happens in inland. And historically, there are certain creeks that at certain times of the year, you see thousands of fish going up to spawn.
Wow.
And the reverse is happening. That itself is an interesting phenomenon.
Indeed.
For tourism, but also has a environmental consideration. So even when we're developing riverfront, again, there's all these things are happening. But so we come up with it, how do we put this all together?
Right.
After we consider all this, for example, considering historical, geographical, hydrological, and all the things, business, a port, what are the goals now? That's sustainable, that, you know, everything sustains each other and makes, and we said, for example, the goals, it must be accessible. Because usually when riverfronts develop, the big businesses, the big hotels, the folks with money get to decide what happens on the riverfront.
Right.
We're saying the river is so important to us culturally, religiously, business-wise, that everybody must have access to the riverfront.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
part of the goals is to maintain access for everyone. It also involves like historical monuments. We must preserve and enhance historical monuments because they already exist. We talk about economic opportunity. Everyone, from the small business to the large business, must have opportunity, access to that economic development that's going to come developing the riverfront. So those are the kind of considerations we had. And also, of course, environmental stewardship. So those were the goals we set for the riverfront. And then we also said, what are the uses of the riverfront? Maritime uses, industrial uses, ecological studies and development. We talk about open space. We must have open space.
Right.
So those are the kind of goals and uses that guide what can happen in the riverfront. And that's how we approach it right now.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, just another question, Sam. Give us, your opinion on what are some key areas that you think will catapult development.
I think there are a couple of them. When we consider the goals we've set, the approved uses, like for example, maritime, industrial, open space, recreational, commercials, and utilities. When we look at right now in Linden, for example, there is no wharf for urban use. If you're coming up with a ferry, if you're coming up with an excursion, a fishing boat, a yacht, there's no place to land because all the wharves are industrial wharves.
Okay.
You'd have to squeeze and get in. Now there's an existing wharf at Silvertown that's not being used.
Okay.
Now where that's located is close to the market, and the council now is trying to revitalize the market. It's on the riverfront. So we said if we can get that wharf, convert it into a commercial wharf for urban use.
Okay.
Then we can build around it, stores, entertainment centers, and tie it into the development of the market.
Okay.
So now you have an influx of people coming for different purposes, and you have the market, you want to develop the market. And that would spur a whole lot of new development on the riverfront between the market and for people.
Okay.
Also, to get that done, now that would impact our transportation considerations. We have to get some more access to the riverfront, better access. And to the other end, away from the market, we have the water wheel.
Okay.
Now, we all know about the water wheel. We go to the water wheel and we see it. But it's right in Christianburg, and essentially that's where Linden began.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of our view is why not make it into something bigger that would give Christianburg something to build around. So we said turn it into a museum, a museum of Christianburg, also a museum of the water wheel, and have a working model of the water wheel, put up a restaurant, and then remember the people who came who established the water wheel. They were from Scotland.
Yeah.
So we're saying that, and they have a historical impact on Linden. So we would appeal to the Scottish people. Say, hey, guess here is one of your sons who come and impacted this whole community. So they would have an interest in that museum. Mm-hmm. So we're saying that with that museum, with that restaurant, the working model, then it gives Christianburg something to build around.
Right.
Because right now Christianburg is just a bedroom community.
Yes.
Nothing happens. We create jobs for Christianburg and all the, for example, we see a farm that's supplying foods, and there are already people who are growing farm food around the area. So the Christianburg water wheel developed into a museum with all the related developments. That on one end of the riverfront, on the other end we have the wharf. So and in between those areas, now we can have people can build in based on their own interests. People might want to put up a hotel or a restaurant or a fishing pier or something. But we thought our approach is to have seminal, important sections of the riverfront.
Okay.
So when we develop those, it becomes like a catalyst for other developments, and that's our approach.
So we had the Silvertown Wharf.
Yes.
For folks who are taking notes.
Yes.
We have the water wheel as another opportunity.
Yes. But ultimately, on Mackenzie side,
okay,
the Mackenzie market is a source of concern. I think it's outgrown its usefulness, and we thought that eventually the Mackenzie market that has to be torn down. It's kind of harsh, but we see it in place. Something like a mall, something that's more effective, more business-like, more encouraging, more tourism conducive. But also, right now, from the market, you have no access to the river. We see a new mall, a mall-type construction that would also have a wharf or some kind of facility that you can sit on the riverside as a part of the wharf.
Indeed.
So those are the things we're looking at.
That's great.
Yes. So that sets some of the specifics we're looking at.
Right.
But of course, people, individuals in the land tenure, different people own land. Some of it privately owned, some is government owned. So they themselves will have their own uses of what they want to do. But we talk about these seminal developments would be the catalyst to tie it all together.
That's great.
Yes.
Listen, thank you so much for your contributions and your continued work.
Yes.
We're happy with the partnership that we have in place, and actually just a collaboration all around with all the parties here at the table. So again, for small businesses, for private businesses, for individuals looking to come in and invest into Linden, we're here for you as a resource to help in that development. Thank you, Sam Wright.
Sure, it's good to be here.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Sure.
Indeed, we have the people in the building. We have the RDC, we have the MNTC, Onika, Leon. How are you guys doing today? Good. We have our mayor, and again, we're so thankful for this partnership. We're a big family here in Region 10, and again, the purpose of this is just to encourage development in Region 10. Specifically today, we want to tailor the conversation around the development of the riverfront. Want to key in on WISMA, but we know this is a holistic approach. We understand that there's been some work by the RDC initiating the launch or the relaunch of the farmers market. Leon, if you don't mind kind of giving us some backstory and some understanding to the vision of the RDC, what happened and kind of where you want to go from there?
Okay, so thanks for including me in the conversation. For some years, there has been the realization that agriculture is possibly one of the greatest means that we can use to assure development in Region 10. One of the things that was observable at the outset was the fact where we have the Mackenzie market and we have farmers who would travel from upper and lower Demerara River, but usually they would land their craft on the Mackenzie shore. And they would sell to vendors and the public on the Mackenzie shore. Recognizing that and looking at the WISMA market and trying to partner with the municipality to up its image and its occupancy and utility, what we realized is that we needed to provide a means for farmers to bring their produce to that market and pass it on at reasonable rates to the vendors there. And that was the first need. The second need was that we needed to showcase that area as a viable area for economic activity, because persons would usually traditionally pass the very WISMA market, jump on a boat, and come across to the Mackenzie market. The thing is that things weren't put in their path to stop them and arrest their interest so that they would be at that location.
Right.
So we solved the first issue through funding through the RDC, the construction of that landing, and where the farmers can access that particular location. And then some work was done to clear the area in front of the market and to landscape it.
Right.
And we had the first iteration of the farmers market. When it's relaunched, the reason for it being relaunched now and the push that you're seeing on it is because we want that one day per month to showcase what is the actual true potential of the farmers coming to that location. So that persons would see it would be in their interest not to have to go to Georgetown and buy vegetables and bring up to resell, or persons, because we share borders with 6-7 of the other regions. Persons coming from the interior know that on that one day, the third Friday of each month, they can come and actually get their supply without paying a toll across the bridge, load up, and take back to their mining operation or their shop in the interior or whatever. That drives economic interest in that particular area. And so for the other 29 days of the month, we're hopeful that because of the interest generated on that one day, persons will see that they need to move their operations now to the WISMA market.
Indeed.
And to establish themselves for the other 29 days. So it's
you're hitting on so many key things that's really sticking out. I love just the interest in agriculture as a whole, right? And marketing and putting it in a context that Region 10 is a viable region to encourage individuals to start developing their farm and their agricultural opportunity, and the RDC stepping out in front and providing that platform to it. Just watching and understanding how they're pushing each household to start gardening in their backyard. We're, pushing to ensure that each school is adopting a plot. We're ensuring that individuals with land start investing into that land and developing that agriculture. So that's amazing. If we look across the world, there's going to be a food shortage. So if we don't start growing more, holistically, it'll be a
definitely. So it's the RDC operates as a facilitating entity.
Indeed.
The council is expected to facilitate economic development, social development, health, education, all of those sectors. But what we do is through consultation with the residents and organizations like the municipality that we partner with, we determine what we can do to bridge that gap,
Indeed.
to make the activity actually happen, because we will not do the activity. So our drive is to drive economic activity in that particular catchment area, to direct it to the market so that the municipality now can take over, get greater occupancy for that area, and get greater returns on an investment that I see as a very huge investment. It's a very nice market. It's just underutilized.
Right, right. No, this is amazing. This is amazing. And again, just naturally, the development of that then just spurs interest, the activity then encourage the further development of the waterfront as a whole.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Mayor, would you chime in a little bit on, some further economic opportunities that you see that are coming as you see the development of the waterfront?
I think what became most important is the fact that the market day has begun. It allowed persons who have never been on Wisma Shore. You'd be amazed that there are people living in Linden that has never crossed the river. And so what it allowed is a person to see what the Wisma market has in store for them. And this activity has opened up that door. So persons are not only on the market day on the front, but they have the opportunity to go into the Wisma market and to see the potential of the Wisma market, and also to see the potential of the riverfront itself. I find that when you live too long in a place, you forget the beauty because you see it every day.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that happened on the riverfront for Wisma. So for us to see this activity budding, to look forward to other events that kind of core on the front of the river, other businesses that can be developed on the front of the river, and the first, of course, should be the Wisma market. The Wisma market is an amazing space. I think it's larger than the Mackenzie space. It's organized inside. You don't have to build your own in there. In there, the council has already built. And one of the most beautiful things, it's fitted for a 2-story. We're only utilizing the bottom right now, but the council is starting to think ahead of how do we franchise out the top, how do we get investors on board. If you can have a KFC, a Churches, some kind of franchise, a play area, play space that allows people to see the beauty of that side. Again, transportation has always been one of the shortfalls to Wisma because everybody comes over the river, they're looking at the ATM, they're looking at the banks. If I get my money here, then I shop where I am. And so the idea is that we're hoping very soon to move an ATM over to the Wisma market through Citizen Bank. So you can now take your money right there and shop right there. There's also the Western Union that we want to bring on board. There's GT&T we want to bring on board. So it's a chance for us to really operationalize the market and to allow persons to understand how important it is.
That's great. That's great. As we speak, we have the folks who can pull the triggers. Here. I'm curious to understand a little bit better what infrastructure or policy changes do you envision need to be put in place to further develop? So, for example, zoning, bus parks, bus landings. I'm just thinking. I want to see maybe what may be in store or where you guys are thinking, so folks can imagine, if you will.
Well, let me have a go at it first because there are two key things that are suggestions that we're going to explore to see how they can work that can possibly drive development in that area. One is what is imminent, the Linden to Lethem road link. That road link is expected to terminate on the Wisma Shore. That in terms of its freight capacity, because the thinking is that the Linden to Georgetown road is already under pressure, and so if you bring freight out, you get it to the Demerara River, you can go out by the river. So, sorry, there is an existing, almost like a terminal that was constructed in anticipation of that. GNIC, the park, constructed a warehouse, a container terminal. One of the fuel services companies put in a bulk fuel station there. There is the old Omai Wharf, and that's the area that I'm talking about.
Okay.
So you go through the Blueberry Hill back road through Bucktown, and you get to that location. It's already kitted out to take advantage of that. So that's one aspect of the riverfront development that has to be explored and expanded on to make real economic impact in the town.
Okay.
The second has to do with closer to home regulations, where there was a study that was done, and this is a suggestion. We know it will impact on some, that they will not like it, but in terms of its pros are more than its cons, which is to have, similarly like you have the quarantine buses from Molson Creek going to Georgetown. They have to terminate at Mahaica, and then the Mahaica bus picks up and goes on to Georgetown. It's a similar arrangement for the 94 buses and the Mahdi buses, so that they will terminate in the vicinity of that market. They will bring out those persons, and the 43 buses will now be empowered to continue that journey. What that does logistically is that it allows for persons to stop in Linden from those locations. It allows for persons to spend money in that catchment area. There is already the Wismar police station there, so that those persons who have to do security checks and usually complain about being stopped all over the road by the security forces, you can centralize that arrangement.
Okay.
All right. So there are a lot of issues that can be solved through that suggestion. It's a work in progress. It has to be discussed, and whatever issues might crop up, you have to mitigate against them. But I think by that one regulatory act, by requiring that those routes terminate at that location, that in itself would push economic activity in that catchment area.
Pinning off of this, these are ideas definitely like how our minds are thinking and putting together, because the vision also, we've already reached out to see if we can have a arm of the road board stationed in the Wismar market, because one of the things we found, persons coming from those areas are coming to sell their gold to buy wholesale and to leave. So the idea of making the bottom flat of the Wismar market a wholesale depot would bring that transition, stop making Linden a transitional point and make us an established space where persons come, our tourist industry will be developed, our hotels, our restaurants can now evolve. And if we can get that in the building on the Wismar Shore with every other thing coming to it, then we were able to really develop the Wismar Shore. The Wismar Shore has the largest population in Linden. So definitely it would be an opportunity to really see this blossom.
That's amazing. That's amazing. This is just inspiring. And, I think what people, especially, in the diaspora, as we're having conversations and folks want to come back home, or folks are having conversation with folks about development, it's just, interesting just to hear what's happening. And even people just to, speak to the mayor and understand from the RDC where things are going, it help people imagine and dream and understand what may happen, right? So, if I reflect on some of the conversations and that we've had with investors, Linden Fund, about what's happening, we understand that there's an investor, planning on building out a marina. So the marina that they're planning and they're, chatting with us about is between Bosai and Banks DIH. So, that's just something to kind of keep in mind, right? That folks need to understand that things are coming. We know that things are coming. We understand what's happening. We understand that there's going to be a welding shop that's coming in Wizrock. We understand that, with the road that's coming to Mabura Hill, there's going to be more development that's coming to increase that activity. That's what we're hearing. We'd like to, understand from you, is there anything that you can share in terms of projects that you envision that may be coming?
I think before we even go to projects, I think one of the things we really need in Linden is the zoning and urban planning. I think one of the downfalls of where we are now is the fact that there was no futuristic plan, and so there was no urban planning in terms of what would be placed where. And for example, the industrial zone, that is something we need on board. I think we have one person I know, Randolph Kendall, who has returned to live in Linden, who's an urban planner, and he's working to restructure the market space. But those are the kind of things we also need with the investment that's coming. With the Linden Letton Road, we understand what is going to come, but we also need to be able to put it into perspective and have that zoning done or that urban planning to say what's going to happen. That Linden Lytton Road from Wiz Rock to Magura Hill needs to have some structure.
Right.
If we don't have structure, then we'll have haphazard development across. And persons coming from the diaspora doesn't know necessarily how to function in a dysfunctional environment. So definitely, along with the RDC, Riverfront Development, we're going to have to sit down at some point with Linden Fund, see where we can find that support. I know the municipality doesn't have the finances, but the RDC might be able to pin in some.
I'm just gonna say that while the MNTC is empowered to raise funds through rates and taxes, there's no means for the RDC to get funding other than from central government. All right, so just that disclaimer. But I wanted to say too that Lindeners in the main, whether here or abroad, need to understand the role that they have to play in this development. Because I was all the way in India and I chimed in on the consultation on the construction of the new Wisma Mackenzie Bridge. And the reason why I focused and I made sure to join in, I think the deputy mayor was on that, and the mayor was to make a specific point.
Indeed.
When the project to do that Linden to Lethem Road was envisaged, we talked about passing that traffic along the Winifred Gaskin Highway coming to the bridge as being a no-no. Because you don't want that volume of container traffic and other ordinary traffic passing through a residential area. And so we had always set aside the diversion at Wizrock coming along the back road through Block 22 and coming down to in front of West Watuka as the proposed route for that road. So it would either diverge coming that way to the river, or it would continue through the back road through Blueberry Hill, going to the riverside and the wharf to take freight. What I learned on that call, on that consultation, was that there was still a talk about putting that road through Winifred Gaskin and putting a roundabout where the current road is at the entry to the bridge on the Wisma Shore.
Right.
And so I had to make the point that we need to shift that roundabout back towards Watuka, West Watuka area, to take advantage of the entry from the back road, and as well to incorporate the freight weighing station that is already constructed there, so that we move that traffic away from going through 1 mile and a half mile. We had so many incidents and accidents, young children lost their lives along that road already. I shudder to think what would happen if you do that development and you don't take that into consideration. I give you that background to say that ordinary Lindeners need to be involved.
Indeed.
Because I took a drive up that Block 22 back road and I see encroachment on the sides. Now, if you want the benefit of that volume of traffic and the economic blessings it will bring to the town, we have to collectively guard against encroaching on the space so that the road can pass. And so when you tell people not to do these things, it's not because you want to be bad. It's because you will be blocking development for a huge cross-section of Lindeners. So we all have to be involved, and we all have to ensure that we understand exactly what is going on and what is coming.
I think that's a great point, right? When we speak about development, community engagement for me is the most important piece, and ensuring that there's communication back and forth. And I think that that's what everyone is having, right? You know, I was on that same call. Other members of the board of LFU were on that call. And in this virtual environment, as development is happening, I'm sure there's going to be the continuation of these, you know, smaller community meetings. Hopefully we can continue to include Lindeners that are abroad and folks that are interested in the development so that they can hear what's coming and they can participate, if not just for this generation, for the next generation, right? I mean, this isn't something that is going to stop now. And if we want to really take advantage of what's happening, we need to think about our children and our grandchildren and making sure that we're a part of it. Because at the rate that things are moving, you know, other folks can just come in and wash us all out. And if we don't effectively plan and get involved at this level, it may be too late if we wait, right? But sorry, I cut you off, Leon. I know you were going into some other projects that may be coming.
Yeah, the projects that I don't want to go specifically to the projects that are going to come. What I wanted to say is that the projects, whether it originates from the diaspora or from Linden, those projects have to originate with the people. This is how the RDC's budget is crafted and how the finances are requested.
Okay.
And so, as much partnership as we can encourage with the average resident, the average business person, anyone who has a vision to do business, when they give us that vision, we can now budget to facilitate that vision. And the mayor spoke about the delineation of the industrial areas and zoning of the town and so on. The only way that can happen is if the consultation happens with the people and we decide definitively that this area is going to be set aside for an industrial park. This area is going to be set aside for agricultural development. This area is going to be set aside for this particular purpose, based on the feedback that we get from the residents and the diaspora. So that's how we have to proceed with development. It makes no sense the council sits in chamber and deliberate and say that we want to put this there. It doesn't work that way, because persons, the people, the residents have to direct us where those development input needs to go. Again,
another just emphasis on how the community engagement is so important and making sure that everyone is engaged.
Let me make a point before I forget. I passed, and I know one of the persons that was on the panel, Mr. Sam Wright, spoke about the importance of the sawmill in that area. That area is under the National Historical Trust. But what I shut up about is that I recently passed there, and one of the more important historical aspects of that site is actually the graves of the Pattersons, the founders of this community, the people who actually built Linden, Christianburg. They exist right in that yard. And I see someone has been doing a bulldozer job in the compound. I had to get out of my car to make sure that those graves are still there. They're still there. Whoever is doing that, stop. Stop. And we need to make a very quick effort to ensure that that site is preserved. People in Linden, there's so many historical sites that abound that people don't know about, but we need to have an appreciation of the past if we're going to move on into the present and the future. There's a grave in the yard of the municipality here of persons from years past that they protect. There's the site for the opening of the aluminum plant, the Flagstaff and plaque, that is just left there. There are things that we need to develop and be aware of and to protect.
Yeah, no, that's thank you for that. Thank you for that. Being that the engagement is so necessary, I wanted to understand a little bit about what channels currently exist for public-private partnerships. How can investors engage with the RDC and the MNTC?
It's quite easy. I think the ease of doing business starts with us. Once the investor comes with their plan, again, with identification of what they intend to do, we're able to give them no objection based on the fact that the project is viable for the town it's in. However, that investor also needs to have their community consultations. So once we listen to the project, and most times we listen to the project in collaboration with the RDC, because they have to come through. If they come to us first, they have to go to the RDC. We'll sit together, we'll listen, and then we have to do community consultation. Kind of get a feel on the ground, what it is you're doing, how do people feel about it, where is it going to go, and making sure that wherever it goes, it's something that is beneficial to the people and health-wise also. EIA, of course, if it's going to be an environmental project or an industrial project, an EIA must be done, and that EIA must be presented to us also so that approval can be given. So the system itself is not too hard, and for us, Linden is open to business, we're open to investment. We've already have some persons starting oil refineries, so there are things happening on the ground, I think one of the issues we've had over the years is that because persons don't understand where they should go, we've had persons heading in different directions, and then when they come back, it looks as though it's a back and forth. We have been able with the RDC to have a better relationship, and so the sharing between us has always been good. So that aspect is done, but it's just for us to come with an organized step for national.
Indeed.
Because once you meet with us on the local and we're able to give an objection, the stages on how you approach national to have your project pass is something that doesn't come out of us, and maybe we'll try to get that document prepared and shared with you so persons understand the step of entering and all the stages they need to get towards the end for the project to become,
Thank you so much for that clarity. Again, community engagement then just comes to the forefront, right? I mean, just imagine that you just received projects on your table and you never heard it before, right? And if you have to give the final no objection, then it may be beneficial for investors or others to at least run it by, have a conversations with the local, making sure that it's in line. If you're going to spend that time, money, energy to go down that path and understand what the process that's in place, ensure that conversations are being had, making sure that you're speaking with individuals, that are really keen and done the research and has been really thinking about the development as a region holistically. Leon, anything to add?
Just that there was one little area of misunderstanding that was clarified very recently, in that the RDC, and this is the reasoning from the council, did not want to offer a no objection, especially to projects that would have had conceivably an environmental impact without actually seeing your EIA or your environmental commission,
Right.
because we do not have the skill base to assess the environmental impact of the project. So the council was holding on, waiting on the EIA and the EPA's approval. The EPA, on the other hand, were waiting on us to signify no objection to the project before they evaluated it. And so with a bit of interaction, that was solved in the sense that middle ground was arrived at with the EPA, where they said that once the council offers its no objection contingent on the acquisition of the EPA approval, they will accept that.
Oh man, this is great news.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we do is offer a no objection to the project, contingent on you obtaining all of the relevant permits and the EPA approval that you need to have. So it's a conditional no objection. And every party understands that. So with that, the EPA will start looking at your project. They will issue their approval because they're technically capable of doing so. And then we're okay with that.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, this is amazing. This is amazing. I think for folks that are outside, right, and folks that want to come in, they want to understand the process. They want to understand that the people at the table are willing and open to investment. And as you hear today, obviously the members are here excited to have conversations, willing to partner with organizations and investors about, the effect of oil, the effect of agriculture, what's happening to Guyana as a whole. So we have the Linden Fund USA, we have Linden Fund Trust, we have our region, the RDC, we have the MNTC, and we're just here trying to push this forward. I'll turn to you, Mayor. Any last thoughts, and then I'll flip it over to you, Leon.
Well, Linden is open for business. I think we are the best in the entire country when it comes to business. Our utility bills are the lowest.
You might want to say that again. Folks may want to understand, because that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
We're a lovely, friendly environment, and I think there is so much space in Linden for development. And there's so much ideas that we have not seen yet, that we know that persons who have left this country sees the space for the development. And we're saying to you, come on over, meet us, talk with us, and let's develop Linden.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that the RDC is very, very open to facilitating any sort of economic development in the region. Understandably, our role is a little bit different to the municipality in that we have a greater purview. We have to look at bigger areas, and so sometimes the jealousy factor comes in, right? Because you can't pay all of the attention to Linden. You have to pay some attention to the rest of Region 10.
Right.
So, but in the main, the systems that we have are systems that facilitate investment. So I'll leave you with this. We have noted in Amelia's ward, there are particular segments of Amelia's ward where the streets are developing into commercial type streets. You see businesses evolving, and they need the facilitating infrastructure. They need better roads. They need entryways and the like. So you will find that in the main, in our public infrastructure budget, priority will be given to some of those areas to facilitate the growth of economic activity in those particular locations.
Right.
That is understandable. So it's that type of interaction, it's that type of information coming into the council that will make our work easier in terms of creating a budget that speaks to all of those needs. And so that's all we ask, that the residents partner with us, give us the guidance and the direction that they want to see the development go in, and the reason and the justification behind it, and we will work to deliver it.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Vanessa, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us here today. We really wanted to, get a better understanding as to, you, your role, and the Small Business Bureau. So if you don't mind, give us a little intro.
Okay, so my name is Vanessa Thompson. I am the Deputy Chief Executive Officer at the Small Business Bureau. For those who have not heard about the Small Business Bureau is a semi-autonomous government agency that comes under the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. It was established in 2010 but became operational in 2013 with funding from the IDB.
Nice. Interesting. So what financing opportunities are available, and how can they, engage in small business grants and micro loans and things of that nature?
Okay, I'm happy that you asked that question, because grants and loans are one of the main programs, the main services that we make available to persons. I should say that the Small Business Bureau is established under the Small Business Act of 2004. And that act stipulates exactly who benefits from the programs and services of the Bureau. So yes, grants and loans are available. We also, another very popular service that we offer is the Green Business Technology Fund.
Okay.
So if I can share a bit of information on what each of them means. So the Green Business Technology Fund is a fund we offer annually around June. It's a $1 million grant, and it's mainly offered to businesses who want to develop innovative green business ideas and solutions. So a competition is held. Over the last year, 2020, was the third year we held the competition. And in the previous years, we were trying to get to issue 12 grants. Last year, during COVID, we got 85 applications. So we were compelled to increase the number of grants that were awarded. So last year, we awarded 20 grants. So those grants are available to anyone who applies. They submit a proposal, they submit income and expenditure statement, cash flow projections. It's evaluated by an external team, and persons are shortlisted, and then sometimes we have a pitch competition to decide who would be the final awardee. So it's $1 million. It's much more money than our grant ceiling, and it's available. So persons can look out for that. For the call for applications, we are expecting to finalize those grants in the month of June.
Indeed.
And then going to our small business grants, and under the Small Business Act, only our clients can benefit from our services. So I should say that up front. So if you're to benefit from the Green Business Technology Fund or the small business grants or the loans, you first of all need to become a registered client with the Bureau.
Okay.
Now you may ask, how do I do that? First of all, And you don't need to have an existing business. You could have an existing business or want to start a business. Those are the persons we are interested in working with. So how do you become a registered client? Once you have an idea in mind for starting a business, we encourage you to go to the Deeds and Commercial Registries Authority and get that business registered. And then you come into us with your registration, your ID card, your TIN certificate. And if you're able to also get your GRA and NIS compliance, it would be helpful, because then we can start the process of applying for financing. If you're not able to do so, those documents are required under the Small Business Act before you can have access to financing. Right? So registration is the first step, registration with the Bureau as an approved small business. Once that is done, then you can apply for access to financing. And I should hasten to say that most of our clients, they do both at the same time.
Okay.
So they register while they're applying for grants or loans. So in terms of our small business grants, in October of last year, previously the ceiling was $200,000. In October of last year, our current minister, the Honorable O.H. Waldron, the limit was increased to $500,000. So you can get a grant from anywhere between $200,000 to $500,000. And those grants are either for existing business, or if you want to start a business, that's the amount that is available to you.
I just want to stick a pin there because we have both a international audience as well as a local audience. So those dollars are in Guyanese dollars, just a reference.
Yes. So 200 to 500,000
Yes.
Guyana dollars. Okay. So looking at the requirements for those grants, you must have your business registration, once again, GRA and NIS compliance documents, and all of this comes out of the Small Business Act.
Okay.
I have to emphasize that, so it's not like we're trying to complicate the process, but the Act stipulates that you must have these documents. And you're also required to do a business plan, and we have a format that's available on our website that we share with you. You can complete the document yourself, but if there are challenges, then the staff work with you to complete that document as well. And then we offer loans, small business loans, and those loans come under a credit guarantee program that was started under the same IDB project that I mentioned earlier that started in 2013.
Okay.
And you can get a loan, up to a maximum of 30 million Guyana dollars again. For any business, if you want to do a business, start up a business, you want to expand your business, and you require more than the grant amount, then the loans are available. The thing with the loans is that SBB does not disburse the loan. So we have agreements with 2 commercial banks, Trade and Industry, as well as Republic Bank Guyana Limited. And under this scheme, you might ask, what is the benefit of coming to SBB when I can go directly to the bank? Under the agreement that we have with the banks, the interest rate for those loans, it's locked in at 6% throughout the life of the loan. The second benefit of coming to us for the loan is that SBB puts up under this credit guarantee program 40 to 70% of the collateral requirements.
Okay.
So whatever the collateral requirements for the financial institution that you decide to go to as a client, SBB will put up between 40 to 70% of those collateral requirements.
That's amazing. Again, we just wanted to give them a quick taste of the the services and the opportunities that are available, because we want to encourage small businesses to come in, and we want to make sure that organizations have the information available, right? So understanding that we're putting a focus on Linden, obviously as LFU USA and LFU Guyana in partnership with Linden Fund Trust. We understand that you've done some amazing work in regards to workshops and training, not just recently, with maybe just over 150, 170 some odd small businesses in the region.
Yes.
Do you want to expand a little bit on the training and how did that work out?
Sure. So on February 4th and 5th, we conducted entrepreneurship awareness and business plan writing training in Linden. It was held at Watuka House. And there were over 160 persons that attended, and those persons represent either existing or potential businesses. So we have been doing some work in Linden. coming out of that training session, we also conducted some site visits, and I was recently informed that 10 persons who submitted all of their documents, their grants were recently approved. So we have been doing some work in Linden. Training is one of the core services that we offer as well. Training, we have core areas, but we also do areas of, specialized areas, for example, and those specialized areas are driven by our clients. So if we have a number of clients who are working in agriculture and who want to do specialized training, for example, in organic agriculture, that is something that we'd be happy to facilitate.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this wide range of information. We're really grateful here in Region 10 for the work that we're doing. From the participation rate of the recent training, it sounds like there's a demand for a follow-up session. So we're looking forward to partnering with you in this journey, and thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and thank you for having me here. And at SBB, we are also open to partnerships with government, non-government, youth, women organizations. We want to see all Guyanese who are interested in starting up businesses benefit from our programs and services, because this is a sure way of us addressing the unemployment rate.
Indeed.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for staying with us. I truly hope that you were impressed just as much as I was at that riveting discussion that we just had with those 4 amazing panelists. So much information was put out that I hope you did not miss it. So just to give you a quick recap of some of the things that were mentioned. Riverfront development is not new to Linden. The concept of riverfront development is something that was birthed about 10 years ago, and we have a strategy that looks at some of the potential projects that you can do along the Demerara River within Linden. Whilst it does not limit private investors from developing initiatives and projects that they're looking to do, it will be good for persons who are interested in working in Linden to meet with some of the stakeholders that were on the panel today, to first of all discuss what project you have, to see how it fits into the general strategy or the overarching development plan of Linden, because this is your first stop. Secondly, community engagement is essential for the successful execution of any project that you want to do within Linden. Lindeners ought to be included. There should be some part of your project that looks at consultation, that reaches with the people on the street to truly understand how it would impact their way of life, their livelihoods, and the community as a whole. Finally, financing is available, and financing is available from the Small Business Bureau. It could be through the form of a loan or the form of a grant. So there are agencies out there that are available for you to reach out and work with. Investment is something that Linden is open for. You should always remember, if there's nothing you take away from the discussion today, Linden is open for investment. We want persons not just from Linden, but persons who are looking at this broadcast overseas to know that Linden Fund USA, LFU Guyana Inc., we're here as a partner in and for development to work along with you, to guide you through the process of investing in Linden. We will be your persons here on the ground, working with the major stakeholders to help you to invest in Linden. Reach out to us. Help us to help Linden. And I truly hope that you had an amazing time today. Just a quick thank you to some of our partners. First of all, this would not have been possible without our collaborative partner, Linden Fund Trust, who came on board at the first word of having this Spotlight Forum to truly look at waterfront development and what it means for Region 10. Next, we'd like to thank our supporting partners, the Small Business Bureau, the Mayor and Town Council, and the Regional Democratic Council of Region 10. Thank you so much for coming as panelists, and thank you for the time that you have given. To our social media partner, IPADG, or the International Decade for People of African Descent, to the Assembly in Guyana. Thank you so much for coming on board and for sharing and promoting our information. Just so you know, IPADG also has a credit union, and they're offering loans and other financial services to persons of African descent living in Guyana. So you can also reach out to them. They're another source of financing that's available, not just for Lindeners, but anyone living in Guyana. So thank you. I have been Onika Stellingburg, not your host, but just thanking you on behalf of LFU, on behalf of our moderator, our board member for economic development, Mr. Damani Corbin. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and we look forward to hearing from you as we work together to develop Linden.